Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hoops United Media Podcast. This is one of your hosts today, Sean Patton, and I'm lucky enough to have Bradley Patton, my brother, and Matthew Murphy, writer of Hoops United Media, with us today. How are you guys doing?
Good. All good over here. How about you, Matt?
Doing well. Thanks, you guys, for having me on.
Yeah, always love talking hoops. So let's talk about current things happening in the NBA right now. The Tom Thibodeau benches Kemba Walker. Interesting. So, Brad, why don't I ask you, what are your first reactions to that?
My first reaction is Tibbs is the same old Tibbs. I get why he's doing it. I get the idea. I mean, the numbers. He's not a good defender. Kemba's just not a good defender. I'm not disputing that, but Tibbs is supposed to be this great defensive-minded coach. Mm-hmm. So you'd think that he'd be able to find ways to compensate for Kemba's lack of size and still have a relatively good defense so they can still be dynamic offensively, because this move is a lateral move, if anything. I mean, I just see it as downside because they needed Kemba, or they need some spark. And Kemba in that spark had a chance to be, at least. I don't love Kemba at this point in his career, but I think it was worth taking the chance. And this move going for Alec Burks, it just doesn't make – or as the starting point guard, there's no way that's going to stay long term. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the playoffs, Derrick Rose was doing quite a bit for them. And obviously, he's only got so much left in the tank. Like, they needed more juice with him. Matt, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree with Brad. It only gets you so far. I don't think it's a long-term answer. However, I don't dislike Alec Burks' game. I really do like him. I struggle to see him fixing a lot of their issues.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I will bring out one point. So when Kemba Walker on the floor, and I'm going to speak offensively here, when he is on the floor for that team, they rank 27th in the NBA. When he's off the floor, they're ranked 9th in points per game, in points. That's a big difference.
I'm curious, do you know the numbers, though, with the rest of the starters in that sense? Because their bench, they have the best bench in the NBA.
Yeah.
And they do lineups primarily. Tibbs will just throw out his whole bench, and that's when they start to take over games. And that's where a lot of their scoring comes from. That's when they get the lead. Starters.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he's being replaced.
Well,
such a good bench. I don't know. At this point in Kemba's career, it's hard for me to see him really getting it going again. I think Alec Burks has definitely had his moments of being able to be make his shots, do what he needs to do. I don't think Kemba's going to get, even if he kept playing, it was hard for me to really imagine him putting up 30 even in a night or something like that. 25 even. Like, I don't think he was worth handicapping for. I think you got to Knicks just got to play their strengths right now. But that's just how I feel.
If you're content with being the fourth seed and getting – I'm not going to say fourth seed. I'm not going to go that high this year. If you're content with being the seventh seed and getting knocked out in the first round, then yeah.
Well, I don't know what else you expect when you only got Julius Randle and no other stars. I mean, it's kind of where what they are.
Tibbs got to find other ways offensively. They don't have to isolate Randle on the block every play. They can switch things.
Well, okay, I can't argue that. I won't argue that. All right, why don't we go into our next hot NBA topic? So, recently Joe Harris got injured for the Brooklyn Nets. He is having ankle surgery. Is going to miss 4 to 8 weeks. Matt, what are your thoughts on it? How, like, whether it's impact related, like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I am not too worried about the Nets. I think they'll definitely figure it out when you have a superstar like Kevin Durant and with James Harden beginning to kind of get back to his old self
Mm-hmm.
to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, he
I
dropped 34, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah, and they're not deep necessarily, but they do have players that can step up their role. A guy like Bruce Brown, who's not going to bring the same things that a Joe Harris does, but he can definitely play an increased role for that team and provide some productivity. But I I like to see how this situation kind of unfolds with maybe Kyrie coming back somehow, some way. I think it's a situation to monitor.
That's interesting, Brad.
Well, I mean, yeah, if Kyrie comes back, that's totally different. But without Kyrie, they're hurting. They'll hurt without him. At least for the short term. I mean, Joe Harris just makes outside of really Kevin Durant, he just makes everyone's game so much. It just makes it easier on everyone around him. Offensively with the spacing. I mean, because now if you got Bruce Brown on the three or DeAndre Bembry or whoever they're going to have there, I mean, James Johnson, those guys aren't threats from three. So it's a lot easier to tag that role man. It's going to be easier for them to, or I mean, they can just step up on James Harden. Harden can make the right basketball play, hit the open man, and it'll hurt. But like Matt pointed out, they still got two really good players. So, I mean, they'll be okay. They'll still win enough games where they won't lose too much in terms of seeding, but I do see them being affected by this definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, Joe Harris, obviously one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. I think we could all agree. I think his number is 46%, if I remember correctly. Definitely brings a lot to the table in that sense. But good thing is, it's a good point in the regular season where they could go a month or two without him. I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously, but once he comes back, he's gonna still have time in the regular season before playoffs. So that's kind of like my silver lining for it. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just regular season right now. They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
All right, our next player that we are going to talk about is Michael Porter Jr. This one's a little interesting. So, Matt, why don't you take it away? What's your reaction? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of wait for the Joker until if Jamal Murray does come back before the end of the regular season. But either he's going to be shouldering a lot of the load. We'll see increased roles from Will Barton. Obviously, he's had a great year,
definitely.
but he'll need to maintain his play. And guys like Bones Highland and Marcus Howard are going to be called upon for bigger roles. I just can't see them being super competitive in the West unless they do something off of the roster. Having Aaron Gordon as your number 2 option just is only going to get you so far. I think a trade is going to have to come if they do want to stay very competitive and possibly even a contender this year.
It's a good way to look at it. Brad?
Yeah, I mean, Nuggets are just very unlucky this year, unfortunately, with injuries. I don't know if I'm not as down on them because I actually do think the Joker could get them through a playoff series against maybe a Mavericks or depending on the matchup. But it sucks for Michael Porter Jr.'s career. He was the favorite for MIP. And yeah, I mean, having a back problem this early in his career, and this was the reason why.
This is second back surgery.
Yeah, so it really hurts for his career. Hopefully, he can come back from it, but yeah, in terms of I mean, it hurts. I'm sure the Nuggets are now a little bit regretting paying him $200+ million.
Sure, yeah, it makes sense.
I don't know how much of I don't think MPJ was having a major impact. Like, I don't think he was the number 2 guy, at least so far this year. I thought it was Will Barton more, like you said, and he's having a really good year.
I mean,
it hurt. Sorry. No, you're good. I mean, but when Murray comes back, I think they're still. I don't know if I view them completely differently.
Yeah. So I'll for those wondering, I'll read Michael Porter's numbers real quick. So 9.9 points per game, 35.9 field goal percentage, and man, that 3-point, 20.8%. Now, this is in 9 games. He has been dealing with the back issues apparently this whole season so far. So obviously there's those factors if you want to include those. But it's hard. This one hurts a lot, I think, for Denver. I think the only way I see Denver making playoffs is if Jokic has like an MVP seat. Like, he needs to be top 3 in MVP caliber. Like, which he's more than capable of, obviously winning it last year. But I think that's what's going to be required for them to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's very capable of it, primarily because he's one of the only players in the NBA that is very hard to game or almost impossible to game plan for. Yeah. Just because he's the best passer in the NBA. And then just let him do his thing. He'll drop 30 and 15. I mean, no, I mean, I have great respect for Jokic's game, and I think he's one of the best players in the NBA. So I would be shocked if they didn't make playoffs. Let's say
his back's gonna be hurting. I know Michael Porter's back's hurting, but Joker's back's gonna be the one hurting. All right, so one more injury I want to talk about. Bam Adebayo recently got injured. I believe it was a thumb injury, and he will be missing 4 to 6 weeks. So, Matt? What's your thoughts on the injury?
It definitely hurts the Heat. There's definitely no getting around that. But I guess from the Heat's perspective, it could be worse. It could be Jimmy Butler. I think that team would suffer if it was Jimmy Butler, but
sure,
I think they'll be all right. They'll get by through the time that he's out. They'll probably have Dwayne Dedmon be a pseudo starter, almost coming in, starting the game, and most likely won't close out the game. But you'll see a lot of PJ Tucker and Morris at the 5.
That's what I was about to ask you. Do you see Tucker as the 5? Okay, that's interesting. I like it. I mean, I agree. Sorry to cut you off like that, Matt.
No worries.
All right, Brad.
Yeah, so I mean, and I agree. I think that's what they will do. I think they'll probably start Dedmon and have Tucker come off the bench. The problem with that, though, is that, I mean, Dedmon obviously is not the same player as Bam for so many reasons. We don't really have he's not the same role man. Can't switch him like the same. He's not the same rim protect. He's just not the same player. PJ Tucker is a very good small ball center in his own right. And when he's been with Milwaukee or Houston, he's done very well. at that position, but he also was able to play next to someone who was really good in isolation, whether it was Giannis or James Harden or Russell Westbrook. In Miami, I don't think he has that same option. So just spreading
Whoa, Tyler Hero. Whoa.
as an isolation threat, not so much, in my opinion.
No, I know.
They're not. I mean, he's not Giannis, James Harden level. Like, stop that. But that's the problem there, because if he sets a screen, they can just switch it. Or I mean, PJ Tucker's not going to be able to. He's not the same screener Bam is, and I think it actually will hurt them. I do expect their seeding to drop quite a bit in a competitive Eastern Conference. There's not many games separating like seventh from second, so it can drop kind of quickly. I don't think overall it'll impact them too much because, like Matt said, Jimmy Butler's a heck of a player. He's their best player. It's not like he's out, but it was already a pretty thin team after their top 6 or 7 guys, and now it's going to be even thinner. So,
yeah, I think I would really like to see Kyle Lowry do a little bit more on the offensive end consistently, night in and night out. I think he's obviously capable of it. I think that if he's able to provide that, that'll help tremendously for them. I know obviously he's not replacing their starting center position, but I think you gotta make up for those points per game somewhere, and I think Kyle Lowry could be your guy for that. And then, yeah, this will obviously hurt. Good thing is they still have a lot of good defenders outside of Bam, so that is obviously nice. I know you can't like switch the way you might hope to with your center with Dwayne Dedman, but I think they'll figure it out because you can always play that defense obviously when Tucker's at your 5, and I think that does seem like it will be their go-to lineup.
yeah, agreed.
So, our last topic. The Suns are hot. Now, the Suns beat Golden State. Curry struggled. Let's talk about the Suns. Do we think, or how does everyone feel about them being contenders, or are we iffy about it? So, Matt, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts?
Oh, I absolutely believe that they're contenders. I feel as though this roster is built for the playoffs almost, just about as good as you could.
How about you? What makes them so built for the playoffs, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's, you have obviously Chris Paul and Devin Booker who, when you do need a bucket, they can create one for either themselves or someone else. They're going to, Devin Booker, especially as you saw last year, can get guys into foul trouble and kind of dictate who's going to be on the court late in games, which is very difficult to do in the playoffs. And considering it was his first time there, he showed that he was able to do so. And it just goes beyond their starting lineup, but you've got a lot of guys on the bench that can produce, that showed they can produce in the playoffs last season. Cam Payne just had a great year last year. He's struggling a bit this year, but I think he'll definitely get it turned around and continue to produce for them. And they got a lot of guys who can step up and fill roles. Mikal Bridges is one of the better defenders in the league, and he's only improving just about every game, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely put Curry to work. I think so. I saw an interesting stat. I believe Mikal Bridges held Steph Curry to the lowest field goal percentage like that anyone has ever done on a minimum of Curry shooting like 10 shots or something like that. I believe he held him to like 12%, I saw. So very interesting. Brad, Suns, what's your take?
So, I mean, before the season, I was definitely I had the impression that it would not happen again. I didn't think they'd be this good. I didn't think Chris Paul would be able to be as good coming off such a short season last year. And the fact that they had like their top 8 rotation players play in 80+% of their games. So this year I was like, there's no way someone's going to get hurt. But so far they've been okay. I mean, and the main guy who has to stay healthy is Chris Paul. I mean, obviously Devin Booker too, but Chris Paul, that's the one I'm really worried about. Just if he can stay healthy, though, I do give them a real shot. I don't know if I like them as much as Golden State yet, but do I consider them a contender among a lot of the other Western Conference teams that have serious flaws? And this is not a strong Western Conference this year.
Not in recent years, no.
Not as yeah. I mean, I don't know what to make of the Lakers still. I mean, I'm not that I think Suns, if they had a series against them tomorrow, they'd probably win out in 5 games. Like,
Simple
I
as
like the Suns.
that. All right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does seem hard to obviously, I mean, what have they won now? 17 games? I can't even remember.
That's a franchise record.
17 games. Man, that is so impressive. Now, I really think they could do some damage. I also am a little bit on favor of the Warriors side if I had to pick today between the two, especially if Clay comes back. But I mean, am I taking the Suns over a lot of these other teams? Yeah. Denver, we've already talked about. Not the same Denver. Clippers, you can only get actually, they proved me wrong last year with that. I was going to say you can only get so far with Paul George leading your whole team. But no, I definitely think it's going to be interesting. I think they are more than capable of doing it. I want to see them pay Ayton. I really want to see them do that. Just so he could get his contract. He does a lot for them. Obviously, Bridges has improved his game so much. So it's interesting. They're definitely contenders, though. I can't put them out of that conversation. They're definitely number 2 in my head right now. I'd place them over the Jazz. Yeah.
Another thing I will say that I love about that team and watching them is you can definitely tell they're not playing for themselves.
Yeah.
Every game, it seems like they're playing for each other, which is very important to have a culture like that.
No, yeah, I agree. 100%. I mean, there's a little bit. It's almost like a little bit of there's also a little bit of an old school aspect to it where it feels like defined roles, like for each player. And Chris Paul's the true point guard. You got the true scorer on the wing and book. You got your spot up shooters and Bridges and Cam. You got your defenders and Jay and Mikhail. Like, it's very defined roles, and it's a little bit old school in that sense because you don't really see that anymore nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like you're saying, I mean, they are one of the most unselfish teams in basketball right now, for sure.
All right, guys. So that will be it for this podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to Hoops United Media on YouTube. Please follow our Twitter and Instagram, Hoops United Media. And I'm one of your hosts today, Sean Patton. Thank you guys so much. Brad, Matt, thank you guys both for being here, obviously. Any last words from you guys?
No, just thank you. Thank you guys once again for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, of course, Matt. Always welcome.
All right, guys. Thank you to our audience, and we'll see you next time.